Here's something nobody warned me about. Getting sober can make things way worse long before they get better. I stopped using and suddenly I had to feel everything. The relationships I'd wrecked, the money I'd burned, the people I'd stole from, the years I couldn't get back, all of it at once. Today I'm breaking down why sobriety sometimes feels like it makes things worse and what we actually do when we're clean but still drowning. To start, I'm going to show you the biggest void that drugs and alcohol used to fill in our lives and how filling it will give us a purpose for staying sober. When we're using, the substances don't just take our time or our health, they become our personality. The way we walked into a room, the way we made people laugh, the edge, the confidence that wasn't really confidence. And the moment we get sober, all of that just gets ripped out. And there's really nothing underneath it. Just a man standing in a mirror, wondering who in the world is looking back at him. That's not weakness, that's the void, and the void is real. I remember getting sober and having to relearn everything. Like, do I even like the things I used to like, or did I only like them because I was high? I used to play music, but music and using were so tangled together in my life that I didn't know where one ended and the other started. And so I picked up the guitar sober for the first time and just wondered what I was supposed to do. Is this still me? Do I still love this? Or did that go too? And for a while, I really didn't even know. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I liked, but then something started to shift. See, God started using me to play music actually at my church. I had some friends that invited me to play, and I remember sitting there thinking, this is the same passion, same gift, but it's pointed in a totally different direction. See, God didn't take it from me, He actually reclaimed it, and that's when I realized what was actually happening. God wasn't stripping away my identity, He was actually building a new one, and He was using the raw material that was already there, except without drugs. And so here's what I had to learn, and what took me longer than it probably should have. The void isn't a sign that something went wrong in recovery, it's actually the space that God uses to build something new in. 2 Corinthians 5:17, it's not just a motivational poster, it's a warning, right? The old has gone. That's loss before its liberation. The new creation doesn't show up fully formed, we grow into it. We become who God is calling us to be. God isn't taking away who we are, He's actually showing us who we were always supposed to be. Next, let's talk about one of the most taboo things in recovery: money. Nobody puts this in the recovery brochure. When we get sober, we don't just wake up clean, we wake up to the wreckage. The jobs we lost, the bridges we burned, the debt, the credit score, the years, and for the first time with a clear head, we see all of it right in front of us. Every single bit of it. And that's when the voice kicks in. You're already so far behind. Everyone else has been building while you are out there destroying your life. It's too late for you. You're going to be broke for the rest of your life. And here's the brutal part. The voice feels like the truth, but it's not the truth, right? That's a brain still healing, turning a setback into a life sentence. I got sober at 19, and so thankfully I wasn't drowning in debt, but I also had nothing with no future. I was driving around in a beat up Plymouth Neon. I was working in a call center, and I was calling my parents when the rent would come up short, and I remember sitting in that car thinking, is this really as good as it's going to get for me? No real vision, no real plan, just trying to survive the month. And the thing that hurt wasn't even the broke part. It was the feeling that this was actually the ceiling, that maybe a guy like me with my history, my record, my past didn't actually get to build something real. That was the lie, and I almost believed it. But Jeremiah 29:11, it used to feel like a bumper sticker to me. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, but here's what I miss. That verse wasn't written to people at the top. It was written to people in exile, people who had lost everything, people who looked around and saw nothing but wreckage. That verse was written for the Plymouth Neon, for the call center, right? For the conversation where you have to ask your parents for rent money again. See, today I run my own real estate team. built a business from scratch, not because I had it together, not because I had a head start, because I stayed. I kept showing up, and slowly, one faithful decision at a time, God built something I never could have planned. Starting from zero is not the same as having nothing. The financial rebuilding and the spiritual rebuilding are not two separate things in your life. In fact, they move together. It's one step at a time, one right decision at a time. See, one day at a time isn't just something that we say in recovery meetings. It's actually the only math that works when the hole feels that deep. And that leads us on to one of the biggest reasons I still see men relapsing. See, when we were using, we had people around us. Probably the wrong people, if we're being honest, but at least there were people there, right? There was belonging, there was a phone that rang, there were maybe plans, there was somewhere to be, something to do at any given time. And when we get sober, we have to walk away from pretty much all of that. In fact, I moved an hour and a half away and left all of my friends, and what was left was silence. That silence is louder than anything I'd ever heard. I remember one Saturday, about 6 months sober, no cravings, no drama, just a normal day. I sat in that sober house and I realized I had nowhere to go and nobody to call. I thought about all the guys I used to run with, the friends that I used to have, and right now they're all together somewhere, potentially having a good time, doing something, and here I am alone. I'm sober and I'm doing the right thing. Is this the trade? Is this what I signed up for, to be alone for the rest of my life, right? And I understood maybe for the first time why relapse feels a lot easier than rebuilding, because rebuilding means walking into rooms full of strangers and staying anyway. It means being the new guy again, sober, awkward, starting from scratch. That's hard, man, and there's no way around it. But here's what I didn't know back then. Isolation isn't just loneliness, it's actually dangerous. Our brains are literally wired for connection, and without it, the part of our brain that manages that threat and fear stays on high alert, which means isolated men in recovery aren't just lonely, they are biologically more vulnerable to relapse. The enemy knew exactly what he was doing when he sold us on the lie that we can do this by ourselves. But Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. That's not a nice thought, that is survival instruction. Community doesn't just help recovery, it is recovery. We are not wired to climb the solo climb. We never were. And the men who make it, the ones who actually build something on the other side of addiction, they almost always have one thing in common. They found their people and they stayed. And so we're sober, but now we've got three massive holes in our lives that drugs and alcohol used to solve. From the outside, things look worse. No identity, no money, and no community. And so here's what I did with all three. I tried to fix them the same way I fixed everything when I was using. Alone, fast, and on my own terms, and quite frankly, it didn't work and it was miserable. The actual answer was embarrassingly simple and also embarrassingly hard. The recovery community came first in my life. The rooms gave me something I didn't know I needed, people who already knew the worst about me and showed up anyway. That is not a small thing. For a lot of us, that's the first time that we've ever experienced belonging that didn't have to be earned. And in that belonging, something started to shift. We stop performing. We start becoming who God is calling us to be. I watched men who had been exactly where I was, broke, lost, ashamed, and they had built something real on the other side. And so I genuinely believed that I could too. My brain literally latched on to that because suddenly transformation wasn't abstract. It was standing right in front of me, looking me in the face, saying, "Good to see you." A sponsor isn't just a recovery tool. He's actually proof that recovery is possible. And then came Christ in my life. And this is really honestly where everything changed. I was living in a sober house at the time, and one night I walked out onto the front porch, nothing dramatic, no big moment building up to it, and I gave my life to Christ right there on the front porch of a sober house. No church building, no altar call, just God, me, and a man by the name of Gary. And something shifted that night that I still can't fully put into words. Romans 8:1. There is therefore now no condemnation to those that are in Christ Jesus. That's not permission to stay the same. That's permission to start. The shame that was driving everything, the financial shame, the identity shame, the feeling that I was permanently disqualified, it started losing its grip when I understood that God's view of me didn't begin and end at my addiction. He saw the whole arc. He always did. Christ didn't just save me from addiction. He gave me a reason to get up, a direction, a name that wasn't addict or failure or too far gone. And that's not just theology, that's survival. And then came the church. And I'll be honest, I didn't find the church through some grand spiritual research. I found it through guys I worked with at the call center. Regular guys who invited me to come along on a Sunday, and I went. And then I just kept going. And eventually the same guitar that I used to play high, the same music that was tangled up in all of the wrong parts of my old life, I was playing it on a Sunday morning for something that actually meant something. God didn't just give me a new identity. He actually took what was already in me and pointed it in a completely different direction. The church at its best is the exact intersection of everything recovery needs: community, accountability, identity, promise, truth. Isaiah 61:3, beauty from ashes. That's not just a personal promise, it's a communal one. And we do not build beauty alone, we do it together. The recovery community, Christ, and the church didn't just fill the emptiness, they actually became the foundation for everything that I built my life upon. If we're somewhere in the middle of this right now, sober but not free, clean but not whole, I just want us to hear this. The gap between where we are and where we're going is not evidence that it's not working. It is the work itself. The void is where the new thing gets built. The three things I lost, identity, money, community, I found all of them in the same place. Not overnight, not perfectly, but for real. And if God could take a kid on the front porch of a sober house with nothing, no money, no direction, no idea who he was, and build something real out of that, he can do it for you too. And if you want to learn more, I made a free resource called The Purpose Blueprint. You can download it just by clicking the link in the description, and then watch this video here if you're sober but still feeling completely empty.